Le Grand Fromage. The month before my mum died, I'd gone back to Tim's place to start the mixing of the new album that was now confirmed as being called Le Grand Fromage. This was a loose translation of the big cheese. I really liked the expression, and the convincer was seeing a picture in my mate Phil Harris's house. He had a small picture of his brother sitting on the sofa playing the guitar, and he definitely looked like the big cheese. Phil was delighted to let me use the picture, but I was going to have to design the sleeve myself. A few months before my mum's funeral, I'd attended the funeral of Steve Hamill. I'd been so pleased with the work he'd done on the Ripe sleeve, I was gutted he wouldn't be around to do the new album. Half the album was still unfinished, so I'd have plenty of time to get my head around the design process. I was invited over to Holland to do a private show for one of my Dutch fans. Marie-Jose had organised a show for her partner Ingrid's birthday, and she thought it'd be a nice surprise to have me show up with me geet. I took Tim with me and we flew to Amsterdam and met up with the girls at the airport. We drove to a town called Scheveningen on the Dutch coast and checked into the Kurhaus. It was a 5-star hotel and had a huge, amazing dining room with paintings on the ceiling. It felt like we were having breakfast on the Titanic. The town had a huge beach and the excellent weather meant we spent our first day having a few drinks in the sunshine with a few of the Frankie message boarders who'd also been invited over for the gig. Marie-Jose and Ingrid had somehow managed to send me a large box full of presents when I was laid up in hospital. The contents were really sweet. They sent me some plastic flowers because real ones wouldn't survive the journey, a few little puzzle games and a can of Heineken. During our afternoon drinks, Marie-Jose offered to help me with the sleeve design, and if I got the necessary artwork together, she would proof it and get it printed. Scheveningen's a beautiful place. The beach must be a couple of miles long and it was spotless. If you're ever close to there, then make the effort to check it out. The gig went really well and we played for almost 2 hours. The thing that made the trip really memorable though was the weather we experienced at the airport on the way home. There'd been rain threatening all day and just as we boarded the plane the heavens opened and lightning was flashing across the sky. They couldn't refuel the plane so we were sat on the tarmac for an hour. We eventually took off but the flight home was very bumpy and probably one of the worst I've experienced. When we finally got to Luton, the pilot literally bounced the plane onto the tarmac, much to the relief of some of the terrified passengers. I don't know how dangerous it was to fly in such weather conditions, but the stewardess making the in-flight announcements had not lost a sense of humour. As we taxied to the gate, she announced, "For those of you who haven't noticed, we've just landed at Luton Airport. For those of you suffering from hemorrhoids, we hope you're cured. We would like to remind you that there is no smoking until you are inside the terminal building, and after that landing you'll probably need a cigarette. On behalf of Captain Kangaroo and his crew, we'd like to thank you for flying EasyJet." She got a large round of applause. The mood of the passengers changed when they got inside the airport and it was discovered in the confusion at Schiphol half of our flight's luggage was on another plane to Glasgow. Unfortunately for us, our guitars were in the missing half. To be fair, they were delivered to our homes the next day, so full marks to EasyJet for customer service and humorous staff. I continued to perform solo gigs wherever I could, and there were a few fans that would travel to shows. I christened them the Babylon Sisters and Brothers, and I think they looked at these shows the same way as a football fan looks at away games. The gig was just a small part of socialising with other Frankie fans. It was good for me as well because I was usually on my own, so it was good to have the company of this mixed bunch. I was on the home stretch with regards to the album, but doing the vocals was difficult at times. When you're working alone, you're definitely handicapped because you have to rely on your own opinion, as you've nobody to bounce off. As the vocals are arguably the most important part of the recording, I managed to get Martin Russell to come over to Big Top to record me singing. He was great on the other side of the glass and I valued his opinion. We got the vocals done over a couple of days and the only parts left to do were some keyboards. Nigel eventually came down and put the finishing touches to a few tracks with his newly acquired accordion and his Wurlitzer. I took the remaining unmixed tracks to Wales and Tim finished the job and I was delighted with the result. Martin Russell mastered it and Le Grand Fromage was released. The internet was changing the way music was being distributed and a lot of companies had sprouted up offering digital distribution and credit card sales for a percentage, so I signed up with a company in the US called CD Baby and released the album. The internet meant that fans of me music had a genuine interface to interact with me, and I could encourage their interest by keeping them informed of what I was up to musically and socially via me Wise Words blog on the website. I'd used the weekly blog as a way of drawing people to the site, and I guess if I have any sort of writing style, then this is where it started. The blog was a one-sided conversation, but readers could leave their comments and share their opinions on subjects I brought up for discussion. Topics ranged from the fortunes of Liverpool Football Club to electrical installations I was working on. For me to sell the record, I still had to draw people to the site, and new ways of distribution and promotion were coming online all the time. This was the early days of internet shopping, and there were many people reluctant to send their credit card details into cyberspace, but it worked. In the real world, the best way of promoting yourself was to perform live. Getting gigs was not easy, and getting musicians to back me was equally difficult. The Welsh boys could knock a set together with me in an afternoon, but trying to get everyone together to play was hard work. Lack of rehearsal time meant that often we settled for songs that everyone knew, rather than trying to expand the set with new material. I was not the only guy who wanted to work with them, but I guess that's the same with any bunch of talented musicians. If I wanted to get out and play regularly, then I'd need to get musicians a bit closer to home. Getting gigs was a problem though. Nobody wanted to pay. In the coming years, I've never made any money from gigs. Big promoters had their pick of bands, and trying to get on their books was harder than getting a record deal. I must have spent hours mailing promoters and small independent festivals. I must have sent hundreds of emails and got no more than 5 gigs out of it, and any payments offered just about covered expenses. I started doing a lot more solo performances because if there was no money to be made, then at least it was only me that was out of pocket. This is still the case today. I can earn money from performing, but it only just about covers expenses, and a lot of the times I'm virtually paying to play. I wanted to have another look at the boys in Evo Diablo to see what they were like playing their full set, as opposed to the couple of tunes they played at Yashstock. I wasn't disappointed. They were great players individually, but as a trio they were tighter than a wet knot. I'd been offered a slot at a local gig in Crouch End and asked the guys if they'd be interested in having a jam together and doing a couple of songs at the gig. They were up for it, so we organised a rehearsal in a pub they used. We ran through a couple of tunes and it showed promise, but the proposed gig ended up being cancelled, so we never had the chance to perform. I asked them if they fancied playing together every so often because I was out of shape playing wise, and it'd be good for me to play a bit more often than I was. There were no plans to do future gigs, but I knew these guys were the ones for me. I had a new band that was fucking great, and they all lived 3 miles from my house. It was great to rehearse and jam with them, and to be able to spend more time developing the songs in a live format and introduce new dynamics instead of just copying the record. When we rehearsed in Frankie, it was all about copying the record and trying to duplicate it. I think the live experience should be different from the listening experience. I don't think there should be wholesale changes to the music, but to extend and elaborate and jam was a whole new vibe for me. The guys were given free rein to stamp their own personalities into the music, and the lengthy jams we had were amazing. I could stand in the eye of the hurricane and listen to these guys wailing all around me. I love me new band, but my old band was looming on the horizon.